The management of this theater thanks you for your patronage.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Yes, indeed. All right, so let's get into it.
Welcome, everybody.
Yes, welcome.
And we're going back down that horror trail, deep into the woods.
I'll tell you, you guys have dragged me into this horror well.
This is definitely a road less traveled for you, Jeff.
Yes, and we will see how I actually truly felt about it.
Well, it wasn't so bad before, right? Because Mike wasn't a huge horror fan, but now it's like you're being ganged up on every week.
Well, I mean, I went back through our list in the last probably year. Right, we've gone Horror Express, Halloween, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, #Alive, Tourist Trap.
These are not like Giallo, really heavy duty horror.
No. But you have to realize the fact that this is baby steps into this universe for me to begin with. I'm not a big fan of this stuff.
To Christina's point, before she came on, I was always the little voice on the shoulder. Why don't we do this horror movie? No.
But now I'm here, and now Jeff is peer pressured.
And now we're like, let's do foreign films. Let's do horror. Let's do really scary crap. Oh, don't be afraid of the dark. Can we bring that one up? So anyway, all right, so let's talk about what we're going to do this week, and then we'll get into some news.
Yeah.
So this week, it's like two of my favorite things in one delicious package.
Yes. Has there ever been a Korean film that you did not like?
I mean, the thing is, like, with a lot of foreign films, even though there's a lot more now that make it overseas, you do tend to see the best. You know, you don't tend to see the worst of foreign films because it's not worth it to them to send it overseas. So
because everything that you've exposed us to,
sure, Parasite
has been very good. Their track record is spotless at this point in time. So I'd be very disappointed to see a bad Korean film.
I mean, I'm sure that some exist, but but I don't think they tend to make it over here.
They keep them close to their vest over there.
Yeah.
We'll hold on to this one.
Although I do think with the sort of need for content on streaming services, especially on Netflix, you're starting to see more stuff because it costs less for them to purchase like a already made foreign film than it does for them to like make something themselves, and like it bulks up their content. So probably there's some not as high quality stuff floating around.
No, I mean look at that #Alive.
I mean, I thought that was really good.
I think we all liked it a lot.
That was one that Netflix had purchased, right?
Yeah, it just kind of like popped up one day. So didn't have a lot of fanfare, not like a Parasite, but
so do we have any news before we get into
we didn't even mention the two features that we're
we just talked about
today.
How great Korean movies are.
Yes, this is true. So we are doing Train to Busan and its indirect sequel, Peninsula.
And then at the tail end of this episode, we are actually going to be speaking about WandaVision 4, episode 4.
Yep.
So stay tuned.
Yep, stay all the way to the end.
Absolutely. I'm not
Or
even
fast
going to have
forward to the
Jim.
end.
I was going to say, Jim, don't even give him a code.
Yeah, I know some podcasts
Timestamp.
actually give you timestamps as to when they're talking about what. You got to listen to the whole thing.
No, because that means you would actually have
We
to
might
listen
talk about
to it.
WandaVision in 5 minutes. You don't know.
Oh, we're talking about it now. But anyways, we'll get there. So yeah, do you want to do some news first?
Sure.
Okay. All right. First up, Disney's Jungle Cruise, the live action attraction. I believe it's at both parks, right? It's in Disneyland and Disney World.
Yes.
Okay. Apparently, it's getting a bit of a overhaul.
An overdue overhaul.
Yeah, they are going to remove some of the sensitive elements dealing with indigenous people and stereotyping. So I don't remember if I actually went on this ride.
Really?
I was only at Disney once.
People that haven't been to Disney, I think, have gone on the Jungle Cruise.
It could be. I mean, obviously the elephants, the animatronic hippos or whatever. And also, I mean, there's a live action movie coming out this year with Dwayne Johnson.
The thing about the Jungle Cruise is, like, obviously when they first made it, people were just amazed to see animatronic animals. And then after a while, it just became a tired ride, which was rejuvenated by the addition of the comedic script, where they basically mock the ride and what you're looking at, like, through the duration of the ride.
This thing like in the 50s, right?
Yes, I have to give credit where credit's due to the script writers and the actual pilots, the captains of each of the boats, because your experience totally depends on the captain, whether or not he's really delivering the lines that and every time I've gone, seemingly, it's like a fresh script that they're using. So
you see some of the same jokes, like the back of the water.
The back of water, yeah, they keep those. They do keep those tried and true groaners.
It's like a series of dad jokes.
Oh, see, I missed out on this now.
And apparently, I remember reading some years ago, and I don't know if this is apocryphal, that Steve Martin was a Jungle Cruise captain.
Really?
And he was one of the people who started doing this on the ride, and that was one of the reasons, right, kind of riffing on it, and that it sort of caught fire, and they realized that doing this sort of rejuvenated the ride. And it's still one of the most popular rides at Disney World, even though you're just looking at animatronic animals.
Yeah. It's funny that you just mentioned that, because I'm pretty sure that John Lasseter, that's where he got his start.
Yeah.
Was as a captain on one of those little
I could picture Steve Martin with the arrow through his head, the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
Oh, they got me.
Like I said, I don't know if
it's banjo by his side.
If it's true, but I remember reading that information. So
I would like to believe that. So let's make that.
Yeah,
true.
that is a nice visual right there. So let's go with it. So all right, we're gonna leave Disney for a little bit. Does anybody care about the Matrix 4 title leak?
I don't care about the Matrix 4.
Yeah. All right. Matrix Resurrections, for anybody who cares. So everyone who died in the third one, obviously they just get resurrected.
Yeah. Hopefully they're making this for the newbie in mind, because I don't want to go back and watch Matrix.
I have,
Matrix 3 to know what's going on.
Reloaded was on last night, and I don't think I've seen it since I walked out of the theater.
For me, even we watched The Matrix again recently. Hadn't watched it in many years.
Now, does it actually hold up?
For me, it did not.
It didn't.
The action still looks good.
I mean, it was so revolutionary
and you can definitely see, especially if you go back and watch it and you say, wow, I can really see how this influenced the last 20 years of action directing. But of course they had been influenced by like Hong Kong cinema and stuff. So like they were already taking influences from other genres and other films and like mashing them into like this really fresh thing. But for me, the story doesn't hold up. Even back then, this bothered me, but even more now with the perspective of time, the whole fact of Trinity's character.
I knew you were going to go there. That Trinity just takes a back seat. You're right. When you're first introduced to her, she is a badass. And the minute Neo comes in, she takes a complete back seat to him.
Yes. And it's very frustrating.
Absolutely. I agree
because she's not a partner. She's just like his cheerleader, being like, you can do it, Neo.
Yeah, she's no longer an equal. Yeah.
So for me, the film doesn't hold up.
We will talk about it at one point. We do need to at least address the Matrix, the 99 original. We can
skip the other two.
Yes, we can. So let's talk about sequels. This one I just came across today, and I thought it was kind of interesting, which is that Cloverfield 2 is coming. You did not like Cloverfield? Is this what you're? I think two thumbs down for those.
Cloverfield is dead for me. Dead boring. I wanted everyone in that movie to get eaten by a monster.
They do.
I was like, I hate all of you, and I can't wait for you to die.
Jim, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I
Yes.
can. There you are. You were like flailing your arms around.
I was flailing because I love Cloverfield. The reason, not because of the characters, not because of the handheld, because it was a giant monster movie in a time when giant monster movies were dead on arrival because of Godzilla 1998. And I just love the fact that I was in a serious tribute to those movies. I loved it.
But yeah, so anyways, this is not, so there's been 3 movies altogether. You had 10 Cloverfield Lane and you had The Paradox, which was the animated, right? It was animated? Oh no, that was the Netflix. Cloverfield
That was
Paradox?
the Netflix. Yeah,
that was the Netflix.
There's also manga.
Oh, that's true. But this is supposedly a direct sequel. But it will not be handheld, and I don't think J.J. Abrams is involved. But it will be more giant monsters.
Well, I just got less interested then.
Yeah. So we will not be covering that either.
I mean, you guys can cover it.
Oh man, that's true. You'll just be off that week.
Right? I'll just
anytime there's a monster movie, we'll be like,
no, I let you guys. I love monster movies. I don't love bad monster movies. And I think
sometimes like what Jim just said, we just embraced what we hadn't had in a while. So even though it was subpar, we were.
Speaking of which, have you guys seen the preview for the Shin Ultraman?
No.
No, I read about this, but I did not watch the trailer.
Really?
Watch the trailer. Watch the trailer. It looks so awesome. If it's the same team that did Shin Godzilla.
Shin Godzilla, okay.
And it looks amazing.
So is this like theatrical release? Is this going to Netflix? Because Netflix did have that the Ultraman animated series that we covered.
Right now, the ad I saw was a Japanese trailer, and it said 2020, just said 2021. So I assume that's Japanese theatrical release, and then it will be here sometime after that. So, and I'm hoping it will be at the Music Box because I saw Shin Godzilla at the Music Box. So
I did see some photos, but I did not watch the trailer.
You should. It won't really spoil anything.
No?
It's just like, it just makes you excited because you see lots of big creatures and you see Ultraman and you see.
Do we see the googly snake, the fuzzy snake from Shin Godzilla?
And you see a lot of bureaucratic types running around and looking worried, just like in
Shin Godzilla. Just like Shin Godzilla. Yeah, we thought that. My son and I thought that 3/4 of the budget was just built on the office buildings, so they can run from one conference room to another.
But go find the trailer or I'll send it to you.
Huh?
It looks awesome.
Huh. Very cool.
I am sensing an episode theme for once that is released
here. We have not talked Shin Godzilla.
No,
yet.
We have not.
Last week we spoke about, we talked about George Clooney, and apparently he is set to executive produce a reboot of Buck Rogers. And speaking of Godzilla, Legendary is picking this up, and it looks like they're going all in on this thing because they're talking about a prestige limited series being written by Brian Vaughan. So I don't know if that's a comic book series or whatever, but they're also looking to launch a live action feature and an anime offshoot. I don't know if anybody watched Buck Rogers as a kid. I mean, that was the last time the Buck Rogers ever showed up anywhere. It was in the 70s.
I remember seeing some episodes when I was
Yeah, what you brought in Hawkman and everything went to crap. But...
Oh, they had that episode though, the space vampire, right? I will never forget that one.
Did that start your love for?
That was like a water cooler episode at school the next day, if there was a water cooler.
The water fountains.
But I'll always remember that episode. It was scary. I
had a thing for Aaron Gray.
I always preferred Buck Rogers to Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, let's not even go there.
Yeah, let's not.
Really, let's not go there.
Yeah.
And finally, we have to just acknowledge Cloris Leachman, who passed away this week at 94. This woman never stopped working.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because was it last week when I was in quarantine, I was watching High Anxiety, and she plays Nurse Diesel. And I'm just always amazed that this woman was so willing to like just doubt herself down for whatever character that Mel Brooks wanted to put her in. But yeah, she's been acting for a very long time. And unfortunately, she has passed. So we will just give her one final Frau Bluga. So that's it. That's all my news.
Okay, wait, before we go on, can you guys hear the snowblower outside my window? There's a snowblower outside the window.
It's too bad that wasn't happening during our the Midnight Sky discussion. We could really get into character.
Under the snowblower.
What's really scary is that you could see him out your window and you're on the 3rd floor.
What?
He's walking by the window because there's that much snow. Never mind.
No,
forget it.
Not quite that much.
Yes,
We're also on the 1st floor, so whatever.
Okay. Oh, now I know where you live. Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But it's a Chicago entry.
I don't even know what that means.
Chicago was built on a swamp. Yeah.
So it's half of Manhattan for that matter. But
all of the houses have raised entries. Like you can't just walk into
like
any
a brownstone
house, like a brownstone, because there used to be subsidence and the houses would sink.
So you had to build in a variance.
So they made them higher. So yeah.
Over the years, you went from 12 steps to 2. Wow.
So a Chicago entry is not having a gangster hit you with a baseball bat as you enter your building.
That's a different kind of Chicago entry.
Welcome. All right. So let's get into it.
Train to Busan.
All aboard.
Now, I just want to start this by saying I could not watch this as a zombie movie.
They do mention zombie. They.
I do not accept the running zombie.
Okay. Dude, this is so in my notes because I want you to take me through the zombie history, but we're not going to do that right in a second.
I consider this an infected 28 days later type scenario rather than dead people being reanimated.
And I think that they also consider that because somebody says zombie in one of the text messages, but it's just people speculating.
Right.
They don't really say that. I don't think the film attributes
correct, yeah,
it as zombies.
The sequel, that word is thrown around a lot, but because that's just in the vernacular. That's how I was taking it.
Right.
So let's just get that out of the way.
And the first thing you see is like this truck driver on a highway, and he's going into this district, and they say, you have to stop and like have your truck quarantined. They're like, there's a minor leak in the biotech district, a minor leak. And he's driving along and he's like not really paying attention. He's
on his phone.
For his phone.
This is what happens when you have distracted driving.
That's right. And he hits a deer.
Yeah.
And he gets out. He's like, oh, I hit a deer. Jumps back in and drives away. Well, he should have stayed 1 extra minute.
Yes,
because he would have seen the deer stand up. Which I think is interesting because a lot of times in these universes, like it's just people that get.
I was going to ask you that because is this the very first time that we've ever seen something like this affect, indigenous, these animals and not humans? Because I do remember in 28 Days Later, the birds, but I think the birds just dropped the blood into
the birds were
Moody's.
They were picking at a corpse and the blood came from the corpse.
Okay. So the birds themselves were not infected.
You
so this is the first time that we're seeing like a zombie animal.
I would have liked to have seen a deer attack. That would have been a great opening.
Right? Because you would think that, dogs could become,
Right, because they're mammals. That's what you think. I mean, if you think about just in real life, right, we were living through a spillover event, which is when like a disease passes from one mammal into humans, right? So it makes sense. Like spillover events exist in real life. It makes sense that it would exist in any universe where humans
they're
would
telling
be
me my cat can carry COVID, so he's a spreader.
So I would have liked to seen them explore that a little more, but they have a lot on their plate for this movie.
There's a lot that goes. I want to point out the fact that this is available on Amazon Prime. So if you have an account, it's free to watch. And I will have to say, unfortunately, my child had to show me how to enlarge the subtitles. The font was tiny, and I immediately within seconds became that dad that I didn't know the technology. I was very.
It took me a while to figure it out myself because it wasn't easy to get to the English.
No, it's like a right click or whatever, and then it brings you over because that's the only way you can watch it subtitled.
Right. So the main character is Sikwu, and he is like a workaholic dad.
No, he's a douchebag dad.
I don't know if he's a douchebag dad. I think he loves his daughter. I think that he's been very sort of ingrained in this idea that he has to work and succeed. And
Yes, he's providing
Yeah.
for his family. Even at one point, another character tells him, "You did what you could for your family," and she'll understand that someday.
Someday, maybe.
right. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, he's neglecting his daughter and his wife is left. So at the beginning of the film, you see this dynamic playing out because it's his daughter's birthday the next day, and he buys her a gift that he's actually already
Oh.
given her.
Yeah, that was at first I'm like, he didn't even remember her birthday, and then he pulls it out, and I'm like, oh,
And she's like,
yeah.
yeah, you already gave this to me on
She just kind of
Children's Day."
like points at. She just kind of like looks over at the one that's already set up the Wii.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh yeah, come on.
But this dad, I felt bad for him because he's getting it from every angle. A little bit later, another one of the characters, once he finds out that he's a fund manager, he calls him a leech because, he does kind of,
him.
he does benefit from others' good fortune. Let's say.
It's kind of prescient too with all the when I'm a GameStop this week and the hedge fund manager. So it's like, yeah, this guy. Yeah, it was a bad day to be a fund manager. That's all I got to say about that.
But his daughter really wants to see her mom.
Yep,
And
that's what she wants
because
for her
he
birthday.
feels guilty about missing her performance in the school recital that day, and she got stage fright and stopped singing because he wasn't there.
Yeah.
He decides to take her to Busan on the high-speed train for her birthday. She just wants to see her mom. So they get on this train. And there's
Suan, is that her name? Suan?
Suan.
Suan. Yeah.
And on the way to the train station, there's a massive fire they see in one of the high-rise buildings. So there's already, besides the deer, there's already hints at something like this is spreading,
Right.
something else is going on.
Yeah, it's a second incident of distracted driving.
So now the train that they're catching is an early morning train, correct?
Yeah.
So this all takes place during the course of one day.
Mm-hmm.
So we never see the sunset, which is in opposition. Now, Christina, I'm sure you've seen this, the prequel animated feature, Seoul Station, which is supposed to tie into this, has everything taking place at night. So that was a bit confusing. It seemed to go against what they were establishing here in Train to Busan, but I digress.
Well, you also have to think about how it's spreading, right? So it's spreading to different regions at different times, and clearly something's happening overnight because by the time they're actually on the train, there's already infected in the train station.
Right.
They don't know that, but there are infected in the train station, and one of them runs behind the station attendant when he's looking away for 1 second.
Yeah, it's all
and she gets onto the train, and this one person causes complete and utter chaos.
And what makes the opening of this so successful, I think, because you're going through the story with the dad and his daughter, and you can almost feel his heartbreak that she just is denying him her birthday. She wants to be with her mom. Okay, this is what she wants. So you're along with them for this ride, and you're not aware of anything going on that's out of the ordinary. They see the fire, and of course the deer is going on, but
we see the deer first.
They're unaware.
Like a little bit into the ride, they start to see stuff pop up on the monitors in the
correct,
in the train.
Because they have the TV thing.
They start talking about how due to ongoing events, they're not going to stop at the next station and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so they're already like, what?
But they don't know. The passengers of this train, when they get on the train, they're not aware that there's infected roaming the streets. And so you're seeing this through their eyes as well. So this is their first experience with this. And I think that's what this movie does so well, to add to the claustrophobia of being in the train with them. They don't know what's going on or what the next stop is going to hold for them. And
so you start to follow not just Seiku, but also a few other characters. So Young-guk, who's a baseball player with the rest of his baseball team. Did you guys recognize Choi Woo-sik?
No.
The son in Parasite?
Oh, really? No, I did not catch that. No.
He plays Young-guk, the baseball player who survives almost to the end.
Almost.
And Sang-hwa, who's one of my favorite characters, and he's the big guy with his pregnant wife.
Yes, I love this guy. And you know what? He's actually set to play Gilgamesh in the Eternals.
Yep, he is.
I love this character.
Every time he was on, I was thinking, this guy reminds me of John Cusack for some reason.
I thought he was great. I absolutely loved him. And when he first introduces his wife to Suan, and she's pregnant, and he's like, I made that. And the wife is like, you're an idiot. That was so great. But 20 minutes in, I mean, this thing just takes off. 20 minutes in.
And you start to get invested in like a lot of different characters, and they do it really sort of quickly and subtly. Like, obviously, Song Hwa and his wife, because she's pregnant, she's vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And Sekwu has his daughter, who obviously, again, like a vulnerable person. Like, and then you see Inyil and her sister, and they, they're older. So they start to set up like these characters that maybe like aren't as capable as everybody else,
Right.
and that they're going to be like more at
Who's going to
risk.
step up?
I was referring to them as the Golden Girls. So they were Blanche and Maud to me as soon as I saw them.
That makes perfect sense.
You start to see, and then you also see the COO of Stallion Express, this guy who you just want to punch in the face for
this
the
guy
duration of the movie.
Because he's like Harry from Night of the Living Dead. You got to have that character.
You got to have a bad guy. Yeah.
So the girl who got on the train, she very quickly infects one of the attendants, and then it starts spreading. The infection starts spreading very rapidly, and you're just in such a place of helplessness. You can only go to another train car.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Luckily for the passengers, these infected don't know how to work door handles.
Yeah. Apparently, right. They don't retain any of their memories, other than they want to just eat flesh.
At first, Sekwu is, behaves a little bit like the COO, because Suan offers her seat to Inyil. And her father admonishes her and says, you have to look out for yourself.
Yeah.
And she says, you only care about yourself. That's why Mom left.
Yeah, she throws it right back at him. Right. This is why we are where we are, Dad. Nice going.
I mean, for him, his priority is her.
Correct. Right.
You know what I mean? And
I get it as a dad. She's being
thinking about her.
Mm-hmm.
But like you see Sang Kyung and Song Hwa, like, when one of the women gets attacked in the vestibule, she's like, help her, you idiot.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oof.
They're just the kind of people who immediately reach out to help other people. And it seems like Sekwu has sort of lost that instinct. But pretty quickly he realizes, especially after they stop at the station, that first he thinks he's going to get away and not be quarantined because he has a friend who's going to help him through. Supposedly this station is under military control, but they arrive and they find out that all the military are infected.
This is where this movie just goes batshit crazy. This movie is insane.
Because the train, obviously the title, they're going to Busan. That's where Suan's mother is. So because of events happening outside, the train is forced to stop in Daejeon Station. It's the name of the station, because the army is supposedly set up there. But this is a great example of the suspense level in this movie. When they get off this train, it's abandoned. It's a ghost town, and you're just waiting for
right?
something to jump out at you.
And we've already seen on the train itself these infected. It's like a horde mentality. I mean, they're climbing over each other. The choreography in this stuff is just absolutely off the wall. It is amazing.
Yeah, these are like the Cirque du Soleil of zombies. They have
And
contortionist skills that are unparalleled.
And this is where I wanted to, get into the talk later of the whole history of zombies. We were now from the lumbering, brains to these creatures that are like flying.
They're infected.
They're
They're not traditional zombies, and so because of the fact that they're infected, they can it's almost like they're more of a threat. They have more range.
Yeah.
And like you said, they've got that horde mentality. They follow each other like towards whatever they hear.
I hate to say it, you go back to like World War Z, where they're like, almost like ants climbing over each other. But this is to the next level. You
But
can't even compare this.
But after they're in the station, the people who survive the attack at the station run back to the train, and because of that, they're separated. So Songhwa and Yangguk and Sekwu are separated from basically all the other survivors and their loved ones, who are all crammed in a bathroom.
So the daughter and the pregnant wife and a few others. I think the
Inil, the older lady,
Yes.
and then the homeless guy.
Yep. So they're all in a bath, and I always felt so bad for that homeless guy.
I was gonna,
but he did have his hero moment. We'll get to that
He's
later.
an interesting character.
So they're stuck in between, like in the middle of the train. And so our heroes are in the back of the train, and they have to make their way up to the front of the train where all like the no names are, except for Harry, who is the bad guy.
Yeah.
And Jinyi, who's Younggook's. She wants to be his girlfriend.
She wants to be. She's the cheerleader,
right? Yeah,
quote unquote, of the baseball team. So
Right.
she's keeping tabs while they're trying to get up to because she's in communication with them on her phone.
Right. And I love this sequence when the three of them like fight their way through the infected cars.
Yeah, one by one. This is where it works so well because of the claustrophobia of, it's taken like that haunted house aspect, but just putting it on this brightly lit train.
Yeah.
You can't hide from these things, except they do realize that once they go through tunnels, that they're kind of like sensory blind. They don't
because
know.
they can't see them, so they have to remain utterly quiet.
They're like T-Rexes.
But some of these tunnels, it's like they're going through the mines of Moria. I'm like, how long are these tunnels?
Right.
But
still, it works to great effect.
Yes, it does.
Oh.
The one scene I think that is really affecting is when they get to the train car where Younggook has to kill his infected teammates.
Yeah, no, that was rough.
And he won't do it. Like, you could just sort of see him standing there,
back,
because to him, they're still his friends.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That's one of the things I think this movie does really well is it makes you connect to the people in the story, so that they're not just sort of faithless victims of this infected, this infection. And then when the whole thing where they're blind in the dark, and Sekwu at one point uses the cell phone to distract them.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And you actually see this play out in Peninsula later, right, where they use light and sound to distract
them,
the infected. But yeah, so they get through and they get to reach their loved ones in the bathroom. And they get into another bathroom because they do have to hide from the infected.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
They're in close quarters with these infected. So they realize this, and they tape themselves up on their forearms, like all the places where they think that they're exposed with bites.
When the outbreak first happens and they're realizing what's going on, and the survivors are all making their way from one car to the next, and they've got the door closed, and they realize that the infected can't open the doors. The lady takes a newspaper, wets it, and slaps it up on the window so they don't have to see them. And I'm like, that's such a simple, it's like your blanket against the monsters. It's
right,
like
but they can't. Once they're out of their vision, they're also going to be less agitated.
Correct. Yeah, they immediately kind of calm down.
So right, because even the infected in the station are just sort of standing still, like idling.
Yeah, just waiting.
Yeah, when they first see the officers, right? They're all just standing there. Until they realize that there's people behind them on the stairs.
Yeah, so then now you sort of get into the final third of the film, which is that the remaining survivors in the front car don't want to let these people who've worked their way through the car in, and they're sort of led by this jerk COO who's like, you can't let them in. And because he actively fights them coming in through the door, 2 more people die. Literally because of their actions. Because if they just let them in right away.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
We can't trust them. We can't trust
lived.
them. Yeah.
And this is like the saddest thing because he totally goes down fighting. Like he fights the infection off as long as he can, and he keeps fighting to like protect his wife and protect the people behind him. And as his last moment before he's infected, he names their child. So that's heartbreaking. And then Inil, the old lady, she dies and her sister's watching. And it's so terrible. But if they just let them in right away,
Yeah.
nobody would have had to die.
And when they actually do gain access to the car, they have to break in. Then they make them go sequester in a vestibule. They spend all this energy locking them out, and they in effect lock themselves from safety.
Well, correct, because they moved them to the next car, so now they're in between the guys that they're trying to, keep separated and the friggin' infected.
Yeah, I know. If they had any sense, they'd go to the next car.
They would have gone to the other one.
Yeah.
You stay here. We're going to go over there. No, yeah. But this is how mob mentality rules. This guy was boisterous enough, and he had enough clout that they were like, we got to listen to this guy.
Their move to the vestibule saves their lives, at least temporarily, because Inil's sister, Jong-il, was like, my sister's dead. And it's your fault. And she goes and opens the door.
Oh.
Because the sister is right on the other side of the door, infected.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you figured that's it.
And then, of course, you assume everybody in the train car has gotten eaten up, and you hope that the jerk COO has died. But no. Like a cockroach, he emerges. He gets us
alive. Yep.
Yeah, at this point, you realize, okay, he's with us until the end of the movie. There's no way that he's not going to be in some sort of final confrontation at the end, and they don't disappoint on that score.
They get to this station, and the train conductor has been like genuinely isolated from everything that's happening, because he's in the front of the car, he's driving, he doesn't really know if there's anybody back there, but he makes this announcement and says, if anyone's alive,
please transfer safely. That's great.
And this guy is hustling, he's trying to save people, like genuinely, and you're really rooting for him.
He got them all back on the train in the last station that they stopped at. So that's, you're right. That is his main concern, is getting his passengers safely to Busan. Everybody's tunnel vision is getting to Busan, and hopefully everything will be okay as long as they make it.
But now they have to basically transfer to another train because the tracks are blocked.
Yet another terrible thing happens, which is that a flaming car comes out of nowhere. And then
pretty wild.
Right. And then it knocks the train into, another train into the train that they were on. This frees a bunch of infected. Baseball player and his cheerleader, almost girlfriend, try to escape, like get through another train. And jerk COO comes out of nowhere, throws Ginny in front of an infected to save himself because he is such a jerk. So Young-gook stays with her and lets himself be infected by her. It's such a sad scene.
It is. There's a lot of heartbreaking moments like this, though. And like you said, you don't get a lot of time to invest too much in these characters, but you do care about them. This movie really does have a lot of heart.
Another reason why I found it so endearing is that it plays out like an old school ensemble disaster movie, where you're invested in all these characters, and you lose some of them along the way.
Yeah, there goes Shelley Duvall.
And the homeless man, who's never named, Seong Kyung, and Suna and her dad are sort of trapped between these, like the train car crashed in. They're in like a little. Yeah,
the trains are supporting each other, and they're underneath both of them.
Right.
The infected they're temporarily protected, and then the infected break through. And the homeless man throws himself at them and saves them. I feel like everyone's really invested in protecting Seong Kyung because she's pregnant.
Yep.
And Suna because she's a child. So you just see all these characters kind of, putting themselves in peril to help the most vulnerable. They managed to get away, the three of them, and they're running toward the train car that the conductors managed to get out, and now he sees the COO running toward the train car, so he jumps down to help him, and the jerk sacrifices him too.
Yeah, I'm taking you out. I can drive this train.
But he gets bitten. Finally, so you're like, finally, the three of them managed to get onto the
engine car.
Right,
The engine car.
Yeah.
But he's on there and he's infected.
And they find him in the front of the engine, like sitting in the conductor's seat. And you don't know yet if he's totally gone or not.
Right.
So he turns around and you see he's close to it.
Yeah.
And there's a struggle between him and the dad. The dad gets bitten.
This is the worst because Suna is completely hysterical. Like, don't leave me, don't leave me. And, he's, I think now realizing, yes, he thought he was doing his best for her. And now he's lost all this time.
Yeah.
And his last thoughts are of her as a baby. It's so sad.
Oh, that was heart-wrenching. He's like, I screwed my life up big time.
He goes to the back of the train and throws himself off. But it made me think of something he said to her in the beginning, towards the beginning. You must finish what you start. And he does. He sees her on that train to Busan at the end.
Yeah. Don't forget your ticket.
So the two of them, Suna and Seong Kyung, finally make it to like a military barrier alone. The two of them have to walk through this tunnel. And there's the army on the other side, and they initially think that they're infected because they can't verify that they're human. And so their commanding officer says you should kill them. So you think it's going to be a Night of the Living Dead?
I so expected a Night of the Living Dead, and I would have been okay with that. It would have been absolutely heart-wrenching, but I would have been okay with that. But that is not how it happened.
But they are saved because she is singing, Suna is singing Aloha Oi, which is the song that she was singing for the school recital.
And this is why her father told her to finish what she started. And she does as well. So that hope that you're given as a viewer that Busan is a safe place is confirmed at the end of the movie. They've made up some kind of quarantine area out of Busan. Right. And you're hopeful that they're walking into a happy ending.
And we don't know if the mom survived, correct? Because a couple times he tried to call her and got no answer. And
so you don't know if Suna was ever reunited with her mom or if she just stayed with Seong Kyung.
Right, but still, this is infinitely rewatchable.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, this was the first time I've watched it, and I can't stop thinking about it. And I would gladly sit down today and rewatch it.
And still be as tense as you were the first time.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think, probably multiple viewings, you can pick up on different things. Because the one thing which I didn't really quite understand, which is Sakwoo was talking with this analyst, his assistant or whatever. And at one point, the analyst, I think his name was Kim, he even said, I just saw a report and this appears to have originated from this point, and that's where our office is. That are we somehow responsible?
So I think it has to do with their investments and their stock. Because there's like this whole thing at the beginning is very brief where Sakwoo makes a decision to get rid of their stock first for a company.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think, rewatching it, you start picking up on little stuff like that somehow he may inevitably, somehow
he
be
seems
involved.
to think that because of their investments that somehow they're responsible, but a fund manager is not responsible
for a
biotech leak. Yeah,
right. That was the disconnect. So I didn't know, and I was waiting to see if they kind of picked up on that a little bit in Peninsula.
Because Kim says that on the phone.
Right.
Are we responsible for this? No, Kim, unless you tripped the leak, no.
Yeah, but we gave these guys money. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, but it's a great movie.
It was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
I loved it. Loved it. And if we're ready, I'm going to give this probably 4.25 buckets.
I'm going 4.5.
I too say 4.5.
Yeah.
It's a really good one.
It is.
It has a lot of
really
emotional
good.
heft, I think, which I said earlier, I think sets it apart from some other films. But this also, in a way, it really calls back to 28 Days Later, because 28 Days Later, obviously, what I think of as the beginning of the infected
Infected,
subgenre.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
28 Days Later is also a movie that has a lot of emotional heft, because it's really about the people
Yep.
in that situation. So I think in a lot of ways it's sort of a callback to that film.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the other thing too, which is what's unique about this, is that it all takes place in daylight. You know, Jim had mentioned that earlier, that it's all one day, so it doesn't rely on the nighttime jump scares. These things are right out in front of you the whole time. And again, you know, we talked about the choreography and just, you know, the acrobatic nature of these creatures, for lack of a better term. And it's all like physical, tangible. Like, you never once did you think, oh, they're on a sound stage or that was CG. It's about as tactile as you're going to get. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about this. This is about as close to a 5 bucket as I'm going to get.
This won Best Horror Film 2017 at the Saturn Awards. I don't know what it was against, but I'm sure it deserved it heartily. And the critics were pretty much across the board in favor of Train to Busan. But I read one infuriating tag from the Entertainment Weekly review.
Oh no, was it Owen Gleiberman?
No, this was past his tenure.
That's true.
But it said borrows heavily from World War Z.
What?
Let's see, I brought that up earlier.
You brought that up earlier, yeah. They are in two different classes.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah, I don't even want to discuss.
No.
Directed by Yeon Sang-ho, who, if you have Netflix, also directed Psychokinesis, which is in Netflix. It's a very different movie tonally. It's about an ex-con who accidentally gets psychokinetic powers, like telekinetic powers. He drinks this water that gives him
he didn't get dumped with chemical waste in the back
powers,
of the truck.
And he uses it to help save his daughter's chicken restaurant from from like a mob. It's actually it's funny, it's
Is it
weird.
meant to be comedy?
It's got elements of all of the above, and it's
I've had some good Korean chicken, so
it's really fun to watch. Obviously, like, sort of not the same level of quality as Train to Busan, but you should check it out. It's really, really fun.
Is he also the same director of Peninsula?
Yes, he also directed Peninsula.
He also directed Peninsula. Okay.
Yeah.
He did. What happened?
All right. Well, speaking of Peninsula, let us go to the concession stand, and we'll be right back.
Yes, folks, it's intermission time. So how about taking a break? Get out and stretch a little and relax before the show begins again. And why not make it refreshment time, too? We have lots of tasty, delicious treats waiting for you at the refreshment center. There's hot popcorn, so golden good and fresh out of the popper. And all kinds of refreshing ice-cold soft drinks. Sizzling hot dogs just bursting with juicy goodness. Ice cream so smooth and delicious, you'll hanker for more. Plus, all the most popular candy bars and many other favorite treats. So why not visit the refreshment center now? Our courteous attendants are ready and waiting to serve you with a wide and wonderful variety of good things to eat and drink. So step right up and make yourself at home.
Okay, we are back, and we are talking about the sequel to Train to Busan, Peninsula, which is just newly released on streaming, came out in the theaters last year.
This movie is tonally a lot different from Train to Busan.
Yes, it is.
And I don't think that that's a bad thing, unless, like, you're saying that one type of storytelling is more valuable than another, I think. Because they don't even try to duplicate what they did in Train to Busan. They're very deliberately making a different movie. And this is, like, it's a lot more action oriented, has like some
nighttime stuff going on.
Right. Has like a lot of
CG car chases,
like high energy kind of sequences that, like, just a different, like I said, it's just kind of a different kind of storytelling than Train to Busan. And actually it kind of sucks if the first time you saw, like Jeff, if the first time you saw Train to Busan was this week, and then you watched Sanctuary,
And then
I
you watched
literally
it
watched
right
them
after.
watch
one day.
Peninsula right after
Yep.
it, because I think
Yeah.
that you would be very inclined to compare.
Yes.
Whereas,
You
like,
can't
Oh,
help.
absolutely. How can you not?
You cannot help but compare the two.
Especially when it's saying Train to Busan presents Peninsula.
But no, I think that actually they were trying to distance themselves and kind of present it as its own story by. So I realize it sounds like Train to Busan and Texaco present Peninsula.
and I think that it was only just to tie it to the same universe for the purpose of the audience.
This is happening in the same world, but it's not part 2 of Train to Busan.
Right.
And there are some parallels. So the main character is Jung Seok, and he is a army captain. And at the beginning of the film, it's clearly around the same time as Train to Busan is happening. And he is trying to get his sister and her family and himself to this boat, which is supposed to going to take them off the peninsula. And initially, I think they're supposed to go to Japan, but then Japan cuts them off. And he acts a little bit like Sikwoo at the beginning of the film, because he's driving and he sees a family, they're in need, and this woman with a child and her husband,
please take my child,
please just take my child, please take my daughter. And they pass by.
Right.
They just leave them there, and they just sort of decide that he decides it's more important to take care of his own family.
Yes. So I think you got to look at it from that respect. If you put yourself in his shoes, your family is in the car with you. You don't know. He's seen enough of what's happening here that he knows that somebody can be infected and not show it yet.
Not only that, the minute you open up your car doors, what's going to stop other people from jumping in there to be like, oh, I want to go too? I mean, you see that in so many other movies. Look at the War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. People are willing to kill somebody to get their vehicle at this point if they think that they're going to survive. But
again, like, it's a lot like Sikwoo in Train to Busan, where he's like, just worry about me and Suan. Don't worry about anybody else. Suan gets upset with him in the train station because she's like, we're going to a special place and I'm going to go tell the other people. And he's like, no, don't tell the other people,
Keep that quiet.
Jung Suk and his family get on the boat, but of course, somebody's infected.
There always is that person. They've got to ruin it for everybody.
Right.
One person in this one cabin is infected, and Jung Suk and his brother-in-law are not in the cabin at the time. Like, he's gone off because he's in the army. He's gone off to see if he can consult with the other military on the boat. Right. His brother-in-law's gone to see if he can get some supplies, like some aid, blankets and food and stuff. And while they're gone, his nephew is bitten. And again, like, just a really sad sequence, and his mother won't leave her son.
Oh, that's a nightmarish visual as well. Once the door closes and you see all the infected realize that she's
still sitting
still
there.
Human, and they all attack. You're screaming at the screen once that one person starts to go into their flailing motions, undulating. I'm like, come on, you know what the signs are.
You didn't see the first movie?
They're right next to you.
No.
Like, leave the room now and shut the door.
Right.
Yeah.
If I start acting like that, guys, just leave.
Yeah, I'll stop the Zoom meeting immediately.
Zoom.
So Jung Suk and his brother-in-law Chul Ming actually make it safely to Hong Kong, and they're living there for 4 years. So this is 4 years after the events of Train to Busan, and then you get this sort of depressing news that the Busan is no longer a sanctuary.
It's fallen.
Through 2 terrible American actors, I might add.
Just passing through to give you bad news.
And so, it does make you wonder about the fate of those who did survive the first movie.
I know. I didn't want to hear that. I'm like, don't tell me that. Come on. I just
all
watched.
For naught. Aliens to Aliens 3. What do you mean Newt didn't survive?
Well, I mean, I think you could conceive of a future where they manage to get on a boat and make it to
Yeah, it was 4 years later.
so
Women and children.
but after 4 years, like they're both still pretty guilt-ridden about surviving.
And I thought it was fascinating that how low they're living in Hong Kong. They are just dismissed, and they're hopeless in their situation.
And it's interesting because they've been there for 4 years, right? And everyone's sort of seen how, even just from video, how the infection functions. It happens almost instantaneously. And yet people in the restaurant are worried that they're infected just because they're from the peninsula.
Right, yeah.
So they are sort of treated like pariahs.
It is easy for them to get out of sticky situations because they just have to start undulating a little bit and everybody leaves them alone.
But because I think because they feel guilty and sort of hopeless, they agree to take this very questionable job from these Chinese mobsters to go back to the peninsula to find this food truck that supposedly has 20 million American dollars in it.
And even if they make it back, you know that they're not going to give them half.
I know.
That they're not.
Right, yeah.
But
It's like,
it shows,
dude, you don't see this coming at
but
all.
still, they are living so low in Hong Kong. They have no other choice.
Yeah.
This is their only way out.
And so it's the two of them and like two other random people, one of whom was a cab driver in her previous life.
Yeah.
And
It'll come in handy.
So this boat drops them off in Incheon Port, and they're supposed to go in, find this truck, get the money, drive back to the port. End of story.
Yeah.
Well, there's no movie if that actually happens, right? So when they arrive, the streets are kind of suspiciously clear for them to drive on. I mean, to me, that should have been a sign that something was not right.
Yeah. We got a clear path. Let's go.
So here's where they're playing kind of loose and fast with the whole zombie/infected angle, because at the end of, we mentioned 28 days later before, it was just a matter because these weren't dead beings. You just had to outlast them. So at the end of 28 days later, you see them die of hunger, all the infected. So, but this obviously hasn't happened over 4 years. And because of the fact that they're using the term zombie all the time, once they make it back to South Korea, you kind of wonder, okay, are they supposed to be reanimated corpses? I still was firmly in the infected camp.
Well, the interesting thing is they encounter one who's in the truck, right? It seems to have gone into like a kind of stasis.
Right. Like you say before, like in Train to Busan, where you got the entire military, they're just kind of like standing there. They're just waiting. And that's, the one that's in the truck. And he's just kind of, you think he's dead.
They think he's dead.
Well,
don't lean over like in the dead guy's lap.
This guy,
But there's a great scene before that when they stop at another truck to see if that's the right one. And Jung-seok goes toward like this glass staircase, and the moonlight
you just see all the
reveals all these infected in there, sort of like crammed up against the window. And I think it's just visually such a nice scene, but even nicer that they came back to it at the end of the movie, that it wasn't just a random cool thing for you to look at.
Because they're all trapped, and there's some kind of a collapse or a vehicle at the base of the staircase, so they can't get back up and they can't get down, so they're stuck in this glass stairway.
Yeah.
But of course, because nothing can ever go right, the guy in the truck is still operational. I don't know if he's alive.
Operational. He's functioning.
And they make noise, which attracts more infected to them.
Yeah.
So it very quickly gets out of hand. And
car horn is not your friend in this universe.
And then Jung-seok gets away. He's saved by two sisters.
I thought this was cool.
And he thinks that his brother-in-law's dead, but he's actually climbed into the back of the truck and hidden. And
he's better off dead than what he has to go through.
but the infected are drawn away by this military group who've worked out the same thing that happens in Train to Busan, where he uses the cell phone to lighten noise to attract the infected. They have these trucks with like these big billboards on them that have flashing lights, and they play
I thought that was
music.
pretty cool.
So it turns out that Jung-suk is saved by the daughter of the family that he passed by at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. I would have kept my mouth shut. I don't think
well,
I would have.
Sort of interesting, but
yes,
he confesses to her because he's been carrying this guilt, and she's like, "Whatever, like you were one of 30 cars that passed us."
Yeah.
So, you know.
And she was like, "You feel guilty about it? Fine. You owe everything to my daughters." So, she's obviously become like a real survivor because there's, she and her 2 daughters, and they call him their grandfather. I don't know if he's their actual grandfather. I think it might be a found family situation. They have been surviving in this very hostile environment. Obviously there's infected, and then there's this military group which just scoops up anybody who's kind of not with their organization. They call them wild dogs. And they turn them into unwitting game contestants.
This
was crazy.
Unsettling. This is very unsettling.
This is where it turned into Train to Busan Beyond Thunderdome.
Beyond Thunderdome. There you
yes.
go.
So they put him in they actually spray paint numbers on their bare chests and backs. They make bets on them and set them with the infected in this like a mini coliseum arena. And like, who can outrun, who's going to survive? And they make bets.
And they only have to stay alive for like a minute and a half.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a minute and a half. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So they don't leave them out there indefinitely.
Then you have a rodeo clown that comes out and rounds up the
killer clowns.
And then they use light and music to draw the infected back.
Yep.
The other guys run upstairs and they are thrown dry ramen as a treat
for somehow surviving.
It's pretty it's pretty cruel. The obviously not just, especially because if you think of people traditionally think of the military as helping them, right? They're there to help.
Yeah, not in zombie movies. Not in zombie movies.
No, they're all out for their own.
There's like degrees of corruption going on here. You have these different characters, right? You have Captain Seo, who has completely lost his mind. He's ostensibly in charge of this organization, but I think it's pretty clear he's gone off the deep end, and he's like suicidal at the beginning of the film. You see him like with a gun in his mouth. He's about to kill himself.
Yeah. For me, he was 2 steps away from Captain EO. It was like, how is this guy in charge of anything?
Well, because he's so clearly has sort of designated or just ceded power to Sergeant Huang, because he's the one who's going out with his guys to get food and like gather people and whatever.
Yeah, he's got the real power.
I love this subplot of him and Private Kim discovering the money in the back of the truck, because they just think, they don't know that there's money in the truck. They think it's a food truck because that's what it looks like. So Private Kim opens it, because once the brother-in-law comes out the back, everybody's really focused on him to get him into the arena, and they're not looking what he's in the truck with. Right. So Private Kim zips open one of the bags, and he sees all this American money, and tells the captain, and they've got one of the satellite phones. So they realize that they can get out. They can take the place of the team that was assembled to get the money in the first place. And get out of there. They concoct this scheme to distract everybody else that's in the arena, give them some free booze, throw some novelties their way so they can escape with the money and get out of there.
Right. Well, part of it is that Private Kim has been, at supposedly Captain Seo's orders, has been really limiting what food gets distributed. This is sort of how they maintain power.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is exactly how you maintain power.
And so
quite the liquor cabinet.
And Huang is pretty angry about it because he's like, we're the ones who risk our lives to go out and get this food, and then you like just give us the fish that
Pittance.
nobody, and all the good food is sort of still stored away. So they decide to use all this good food that they've stored up as a reward, and then say, oh, and then we're going to have like nonstop games.
Yeah.
So that it's like, now we've got food, now we've got all these treats that we haven't been able to have, and we get to have like watch the games, and so they're all distracted by this. But while they're doing this, Min Young and her daughters and Jung Suk are coming back to get the satellite phone. They don't care about the money so much, but they need the money and the truck in order to get onto the boat.
Yeah. I'm surprised that the idea that money even has any value in this type of a world.
Well, outside of it doesn't to them because
but it just, I mean, they can't be like so isolated that the rest of the world is not dealing with this crap as well.
But the mobsters in Hong Kong are the ones who want the money. To them, it's just free money.
Yeah,
they had given the impression that this was sequestered now to the peninsula, like this hadn't gotten out of the Koreas, actually out of South Korea. So everything outside
the rest of
there
the world
is still normal.
It's
still functioning. So the money has worth outside of South Korea.
And again, just like 28 Days Later, because in 28 Days Later, I don't know if you remember, the guy says, I can't believe that over the ocean, like people are watching The Simpsons and doing all this stuff. Do you remember that conversation? And the other guy's like, what do you mean? And he's like, we're an island.
We're an island. Yeah.
Like they just confined us here. They confined it here, and everyone else is having a regular life. And it's stuck in this one place. So, which of course is why at the beginning of Peninsula, so many of the boats are stranded. Because even if they don't have infected on them, other places don't want to run the risk of, bringing the refugees into their country. But Chul Min, who his brother-in-law thinks he's dead, has been thrown into this, Hunger Games situation. And once his brother-in-law realizes he's there, he's like, I have to go and get him. So, they have the truck, they have the phone, they're ready to leave. And Min Jung, by the way, is ruthless. She runs over, she hits Seo with the truck.
Bye-bye.
I was actually sort of traumatized for her by the thought, because they mentioned that at one point she lived there. And there don't seem to be any other women.
No.
That seems like that would be a very dangerous situation. You can understand why she left there. It does not seem like that would be a good situation for her or her daughters.
Because a lot of this, I think, is kind of a tribute to what we saw in Day of the Dead. Like the Captain Rhodes character from Day of the Dead was a lot like Sergeant Huang in this film. So maybe Unit 631 started out differently than what, and maybe it just evolved into what it is now.
Yeah. So now you have like this sort of like layers of battle that end up happening, right? He goes down into the pit to get his brother-in-law out. He thinks he's about to save him, and then Huang shoots him. Huang shoots Chul Min. I think this is really hard for Jung Suk, because all he's had left of his family is, his brother-in-law. And he's gone to these lengths to keep him safe because, to the extent that even at the beginning of the movie, when they're in the car, he's like, I'll go out and check, you stay in the car. And his brother-in-law is like, we're both doing this. You can't like keep protecting me. But it's like he keeps trying to protect this one remaining member of his family. He has to leave now without his brother-in-law and jumps in the truck with Min Jung and her amazing driver daughter. I think it's really cute that Uni not just that Uni drives like really well, but that Eugene,
But
the
still,
younger
that's-
sister, has the remote control cars that
Yeah, we
she
didn't even talk
uses.
about the remote control car because that is a cool element, and I thought was neat.
So, but bringing this back to the Mad Max comparison, so we had the Beyond Thunderdome arena style games, but now we have like an epic Road Warrior style car chase at the end of this.
A little too CG for my taste.
But it was, you know what was funny is I was expecting a DeLorean to come out from Ready Player One, like at any given moment. Because those
like,
car chases were good, right?
Oh,
so
absolutely.
You got to accept it as a CG thing.
This is like Tokyo Drift with a zombie Paul Walker.
But also, like, I think it's so clever because they're all trying to use, like, infected distraction techniques against the other team. So, like, Huang and his boys, they all have these big, like, spotlights on their cars, and they have the flares. The others, are better drivers, so like they use that against them. And again, like it's very different from Train to Busan, but it's very exhilarating to watch, especially in the theater, because you have all these different layers. Like they could be caught by the infected, they could be caught by the military, and then Seo is still out there trying to get the satellite phone and get to the boat himself.
But he shoots his comrade in arms, Private Kim. I thought that was a heartbreaking moment. I'm like, no, you're meant to be together, you two. Come on.
It was meant to be. Not.
The other subplot is that the grandfather has this radio, and he keeps claiming to speak to this military woman named Jane.
Now, the grandfather isn't in the most stable frame of mind to begin with. So Jane could very well be a construct of his imagination.
And that's what they think she is. They don't think he's actually talking to anybody. The youngest daughter, Eugene, she refers to him as Commander a couple of times. So maybe he previously had some kind of military status. But yeah, they think maybe he's just...
Yeah. And he doesn't want anybody to touch that radio. So nobody else has proof that this person exists. Yeah.
Yep.
They get to the port, they are about to call on the satellite phone so they can get on the boat, and Seo shows up just like the COO in the first movie, just like a cockroach, and he kills the grandfather, which is really sad because it's like they're, they've gone to such lengths to keep their little family together.
And then he takes a hostage on top of that.
You deserve to die.
He's a terrible person. So, of course, the mobsters were intending to double-cross them all along.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Seo actually makes it onto the boat with the truck. Yeah. He is the driver of the truck that makes it there. And he's just so like, I'm very happy to meet you. Can you please just let me on the boat now? I brought you your money.
I got you.
And the gangsters are like, oh, it's a different driver. Same result. And they just shoot him.
I mean, the idea that people with no power would be able to walk away with $10 million.
So this is why you get everything in writing.
Right.
Seo does manage one, not so much heroic, but one final act of revenge on his murderers. He puts the truck in reverse and guns it. So it breaks the access door to the boat. So the zombies, the infected, are able to swarm into the boat.
Mm-hmm. So nobody's getting that 20 million.
And nobody's getting off the peninsula on that boat either.
Oh, there'll be a sequel to the sequel. Scuba. We all go underwater to retrieve the water.
And then, like a miracle, out of the blue, a helicopter appears. Just when, Min Jung and her daughters and Jung Suk are like ready to give up, here comes this United Nations helicopter come to save them, because it turns out Grandpa wasn't so crazy.
Jane was real.
Now, again, I know this one of the central themes of both of these is to help those in need, but these people have blood all over them, and yet they're welcomed by the UN with, oh yeah, come on our helicopter where there's no escape from you. You're infected.
Right. There's no way you're infected. You survived this far, you're good.
And of course, there's like one more suspenseful moment at the end because it looks like Min Jung's going to sacrifice herself because
Yes,
she can't run.
a very Dawn of the Dead type ending as well, because we have the major character about to commit suicide while the others escape.
And then Jung Suk goes back to get her because her daughters are in such distress they won't even get on the helicopter that's there to save them. And again, there's like a parallel at the end of Train to Busan where, you know, Suan is screaming for her father and she's being held back. And, you know, you have the same situation here where the daughters, they just won't go without their mother. They're all saved. He's, to a certain extent, redeemed himself.
Yeah, because he did what he couldn't do.
And conveniently, his brother-in-law has died, so there's no reminder of that guilt anymore.
I was waiting for the Cloverfield monster to come and just eat the helicopter at the end.
I mean, I think that it's always tough with these movies because you know, you either get a Night of the Living Dead situation where nobody lives, right? Or you get a semi-hopeful ending where people survive and then it's like, was that realistic that they would survive? You know, but I do like that I think they tried very hard to distinguish this from Train to Busan. I think they did not want to make Train to Busan over again. Just like George Romero making three very, you know,
very
different
movies.
Movies in his original trilogy.
It worked against it for me because I did watch them back to back. And because I was so blown away by Busan, this didn't work for me very much. It was a much more, like you said, it's a different movie. And if I just seen it on its own, I might have enjoyed it because, you know, there's a lot of action sequences or whatever. But again, because Train to Busan was so in your face and so like, I keep wanting to say tactile because it was just so physically real. Like these things were so realized. And then in this one, you got the car chases, the CG, they're running them over. It was much more cartoony action sequences and whatnot. And there's a lot of stuff that takes place at night. So,
but again, like very similar to Dawn of the Dead, where a lot of the sequences are more, dare I say, cartoony, right? Like more extreme.
Yeah, the situation is much more grim throughout in Night of the Living Dead than it is in Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
I think it would have worked a lot better taken on its own merit without, you know, with a lot of distance from Train to Busan. Because I didn't think it was a bad film. I enjoyed it.
No,
it was very entertaining.
And I liked it a lot when I saw it in the theater because I hadn't just watched Train to Busan, like, you know, right before. And because you're in the theater and you have that sort of theatrical experience. Like my son especially was pumped. Like he loved this.
Yeah, and I remember you saying that too. And I was like, oh well, I'm gonna disappoint him.
And
with my bullets.
You know, they're just different movies. And
it is not fair to kind of compare the two of them.
And I think I respect them for doing that because I think it would have been really easy
to just
make, you know, the same type of movie again. And they made such an effort, I think, to distinguish the tone from Train to Busan.
Fair enough. Yeah. So I couldn't stop thinking about, you know, here we got, and I know Jim's going to absolutely cringe, but you got Zack Snyder's out there touting his new Army of the Dead as a zombie heist movie. And I'm watching this going, that's what this is. It's a zombie heist movie.
And because he's touting it as it's like a brand new thing.
Right. He's somehow a genius that took these two different ideas and now he's going to bring this to the screen. And I'm
That's funny. That's funny you say that because, I saw a news article like, you know, hours after watching Peninsula saying, you know, oh, it's a heist movie and it's a zombie movie and we're bringing them together. I'm like,
right,
really?
Exactly. I'm like, well, you're not doing anything new. Whatever. We're on a different topic. Yeah. Let's get off this.
What kind of buckets would we give to Peninsula?
See, now I feel bad.
You feel bad?
I do feel bad because I knew.
You feel like you didn't give it a chance?
You know, like Jim said, I think on its own merits, if I had watched it by itself, with either after seeing Train to Busan 4 years later or whatever. So, but 3. I mean, it was enjoyable, but I thought it was derivative of a lot of other action zombie stuff.
See, I would give it one less bucket than what I did Busan, so 3.25. But I do think with a reassessment on its own, it would probably improve.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this was a 4 because I loved it when I saw it in the theater, and I enjoyed the energy of it. It's just different,
Yeah.
From Busan. And again, like I was invested enough in all of the characters and sort of their different struggles.
Yeah, I don't think I attached myself to as much with these characters as I did with Train to Busan.
So for any fans of our confessional, you're going to be very disappointed.
Aww. But instead you get WandaVision.
You get WandaVision instead.
That's right. So you stuck with us all this time just to listen to WandaVision.
So this is our weekly discussion, as long as this show runs, at least.
Well, we got
about
4
WandaVision.
episodes in, so we have 5 more after this.
Yeah. This one called "We Interrupt This Program" is the title.
And this episode, first of all, it reveals a lot of stuff.
Yes, it does.
Literally interrupts the program.
That has
pretty
been,
much any questions that we put out there in the past 2 episodes of us talking about this
absolutely
were
have
answered.
been answered. Yep.
But this also features 2 of my favorite Marvel supporting characters of all time.
I kind of knew one was
Darcy.
She is so fun to watch as a character.
The last time we saw her was in Thor: Dark World, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Wu, who is
Detective.
I love Randall Park. And there was a little callback in Ant-Man and the Wasp. He was doing the online close-up magic course that Scott had done, and in this he made his badge appear like it was a magic trick.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing both of them again so much, even aside from the plot development.
But that's fun because you got these little characters coming in from these different movies now it's tying it into the larger MCU.
But we knew it was him. That was his voice that you kept hearing.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm trying to remember if we actually called that out when we heard it, but I think you might have mentioned it, Jim, that you thought that
and
was
not that I recognized his voice, but that was, if you were, I unfortunately started to look at some things online, and that was called out that was definitely that actor providing that voice coming out of the radio.
Yeah, so we start out basically back at the blip.
Yeah, a callback to Infinity Wars. It's revealed that Monica Rambeau disappeared when Thanos snapped in Infinity War.
I've been saying her name wrong for the last 30 years, by the way. I think I've been putting too much of a French spin on it. Rambeau. And they just call her Rambeau.
At the time of the snap, she's in a hospital with her mother, Maria Rambeau, who had a successful procedure at the time. But now that it's years later, her mother has passed. When she comes
this is
back
kind of interesting
in the
at first because you don't really know what's going on. You start to realize that all these people are rematerializing, and she's one of them. So when they blip everybody back, it's chaos in the hospital, and she has no clue that basically 2 years is gone, or was it longer than that actually? But the interesting thing is that she died of cancer, and it's revealed that she actually formed SWORD. She had been doing some outer space adventures.
Yes. So Monica was part of SWORD when she left, and she wants her old job back. And now there's a new director, Tyler Hayward, who says that her mother actually set this up after the snap, and her mother was convinced that everybody would come back. And once they did, that those that came back would be grounded. So they'd be on terrestrial missions rather than outer space missions.
Right.
And that's what Monica is facing when she comes back. Sure enough, a terrestrial mission presents itself.
A missing persons.
A missing town.
Well, they do realize pretty quickly that there's more going on than a missing person.
Right.
Because when they're approaching the sign that says Westview, you're just like, oh, that's where Wanda and Vision live. That's where their dream home is, Westview.
Right.
So, and the amazing thing is, once they reach the town limits, they're standing next to the sign, and the local police are right there. Don't even realize there is a Westview, and they're standing right next to the Westview sign. Agent Wu actually asked them, well, where do you come from? Eastview.
Right, Eastview. Yeah, there is no Westview.
He's like, thanks for your cooperation.
Officer.
So there's like a full-scale amnesia that's been put upon all these people, but for some reason, I don't know if it's just people that knew people that lived in Westview or people that were aware or familiar with the town, because it seems like the FBI and these outside forces have no problem acknowledging that there is a Westview. So whatever
Right.
kind of mojo that Wanda is putting out there, it's not affecting the FBI or the authorities.
And Wu asks that question. He's like, so is it proximity
Yeah.
that's causing, like how come we can see
Yeah.
Right. Or
there's a
know what's going.
Westview?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so but then Monica does the thing you're never supposed to do.
Right.
She touches it.
That's good. Let me go into the dome. I was gonna
First
say
she
they
tries
were
to send
sending.
in a drone.
Yep.
And the drone just disappears.
So already we know, going back to the second episode where Wanda finds the sword helicopter, that's basically what that was. It was a drone.
So Monica goes and touches it, and she gets sucked in.
Yep.
And so now there's like a full-scale operation with all these different organizations brought in to try to figure out what's going on. And this is when Darcy's brought in.
We also see a callback to the beekeeper. He goes in his full hazmat suit into the sewer drain. He crawls in, and then when he comes out into sitcom land,
he changes.
The sitcom kind of appropriated him to the closest way, like to that 50s sensibility that it knew how. So it changed his hazmat suit to a beekeeper suit.
But why is he suddenly covered in bees, though? That was a weird...
Well, maybe that's like a construct of her head. Who knows?
Because he's in the beekeeper suit.
He's in the beekeeper outfit.
I guess so. I guess there's got to be bees around you.
So Darcy shows up, and Darcy, by the way, is now Dr. Lewis, no longer an intern.
That's right. She's an astrophysicist. And this is a great intro because she's in the back of the truck with like 6 other people. And she's like, where are you from? What's your specialty? Shh, we're not supposed to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. And she finally gets all of the talk is what their specialty is. And then the other guy says, well, I'm this. And she goes, shut up. We don't care.
Yeah. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
But she didn't try to name Thor's hammer. She didn't say
no.
Mew
Mew. Mew Mew.
Mum yum. They show up and nobody has any idea what's going on.
No, I find it funny she figures it out within like a heartbeat.
And
but she does say that, well, it can't just be for my benefit that they're doing a 50s and 60s sitcom here.
So immediately, right, because this is the other thing too. At the end of the opening credits, you see it pans back and you see that there's somebody from Sword sitting at the computer watching this show unfold, and you realize Darcy's able to figure out that there's some cosmic microwave background radiation or whatever, and she's able to pick up the television broadcast of the last 3 episodes that we've been watching, the sitcom world. So now she demands that they get all these old TVs and they're watching the episodes, trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
And we see a little clip of something that we actually hadn't seen, which we see Geraldine, Monica, on a park bench.
Yeah.
Darcy's trying to figure out, like, is she purposely playing along?
Does
Does she have
right.
to play along? Like,
Yep.
Nobody really seems clear on what's happening. But the fun thing is how Darcy says she's getting invested, right? She's like, twins.
Yeah.
That's a twist.
She had twins? Yeah. But it's interesting because they're able to start figuring out the supporting cast and these people. And
so that's what I wasn't sure of, because they're bringing all these names in. Okay, this is that person. This is that person. Are these residents of Westview?
That's my take, is that
they're
somehow
finding like their real identity.
Their real identities, and that somehow Wanda has warped them into these.
But they didn't say who they were. They identified them. But we don't know their past or what they mean to Wanda or to the FBI.
Or if anything, I mean, she may have just chosen that town.
Right. And they found almost everybody they found, because they were putting their real IDs up with it. They all had New Jersey driver's licenses.
Yeah,
so they were all
Jersey.
From that area.
Right, yeah.
They're like people from that area who somehow got sucked into this thing. And they're again going back to the last episode, there does seem to be some degree of awareness.
Yes, they're trying to cover their tracks whenever Wanda's around. So yeah, they know that they're in some kind of a construct.
And at one point they actually, Wu's got this whiteboard where they're writing down questions like why is sitcom, is Vision alive? And the one thing I thought was really interesting, he said, why the hexagons? Mm-hmm. And if you go back and you look at all the opening and closing sequences to the sitcom and throughout, even if you talk about the beekeeper, because beehives are built out of little hexagons. is that there's this recurring theme of 6 of the hexagons, and I don't know if they're playing into the idea that Wanda's mutant ability is a hex power. And I can't take credit for this, but I did see that somebody pointed out that all of the 6s are missing from any of the knobs or controls or TV channels or clocks. So there's a weird 6 thing going on.
People have a lot of free time on their hands.
Well, apparently this is, but that's why they put this stuff in there. They don't just randomly put stuff like this in there. They want people to dig deeper.
There is that guy that goes through every frame, freezes it, and looks. I'm sure it takes him all day to do so, but I'm sure there's that guy out there.
That's what the internet's built for, right? For somebody to tear this stuff apart. Look at how we used to dissect Lost episodes, right? I mean, that was the start of this whole, let's bury as much stuff into these TV shows and let's see if people can actually
but what we were privy to, because we were talking about stuff that we didn't see in the first 3 episodes. What we were privy to was Monica, for example, getting expelled from the sitcom. And you don't see that in the version that the FBI is looking. It's just a blip, for lack of a better word,
that
in
was
the show.
Interesting. Yeah.
She's there and then she's not there. Yeah. So it's kind of glossed over in the world of this sitcom. And it only seemed like this was on for 10 minutes before the end credits came up.
Really, like, I was just sitting down to like really start digging into my notes, and all of a sudden it was like the end credits going. I'm like, that was a lot. I mean, because we did catch up with the other 3 episodes as far as like everything that we've seen up to that point from the point of view of the sitcom, and now you're seeing it from the other end.
You also see one thing you didn't see last week, which is that Wanda has a vision of, she sees Vision dead.
Yeah, Vision dead. Yeah, but that's after Monica brings up her brother, an Ultron, which, you know, she's like, that's what gets her expelled, first of all. But yeah, then you're right. Then she turns around and there's Vision, and he's all gray with his Infinity Stone missing.
But that made it into the show, because doesn't Wu at one point, did she just say Ultron?
The Ultron thing, but they don't see what Wanda sees.
Right. After the fact, right.
They just see up to the point that we saw last week where, you know, she mentions Ultron and then Wanda says you have to leave, and then there's like a cutaway and we come back and she's not there anymore, you know. So that's all they saw until they found Monica outside in the grass.
Yeah, and she's like, Wanda's the center of it all. And I'm like, it took you that long to figure it out?
But this is where we were insistent that the show was going. So this is what, you know, this is the bigger picture of what's going on. This is not just a parody or a tribute to a sitcom. There is something going on within the MCU
but I also
here.
I also think that the sitcom entity will exist for a little bit longer before Wanda truly starts losing herself.
Oh yeah, because I've seen the Funko Pops where they dress up for Halloween. So
that's right. Yes,
we've got something coming.
You're
like
right.
that.
We do have that upcoming episode.
But there's also another factor, because Darcy says like someone's affecting the broadcast. So like, is Wanda affecting the broadcast, or is a third party involved? Like, she says that someone's like, you know, basically affecting what they can see. So is there another entity here
controlling or
interfering?
Well, I have a theory, but it's so Agnes, Catherine Hahn, is that her actress's name?
Yes.
That character's there's something more to her as well. I think she's kind of come and gone a couple times, and you know, they've made some references to Devils in the Details, and that's not all where he is, or you know, like little side notes like that with Dottie.
Mephisto, I brought him up.
Yeah, you did bring up Mephisto, and I think that if you go back to the comics, Mephisto, like, he literally offers your desires in exchange for a piece of your soul. So if he's somehow controlling Wanda and giving her this world where Vision is alive and she has a, you know, happy life, it could be. And she could, and if that's a sense, then Agnes could very well be what the hell's her name, Agatha Harkness, who did teach Wanda how to use her powers.
And we know that this is going to tie some way in with the next Doctor Strange. So This would be right up that alley if that's where they go.
Apparently, Mephisto is comprised of the same energy as the Infinity Stones, which I didn't realize.
I didn't know that either.
But the usage or destruction of those could have awakened him.
There's only one way to find out. Keep
Stay
watching.
Tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. So, yeah, there was a lot going on this episode, and it was good.
I mean, I've been intrigued every week, so.
Yeah. Oh, I'm thoroughly enjoying the whole sitcom.
I am as well.
So I can't wait till she gets to Full House. Is she going to do a Full House episode?
Maybe they'll get there. Yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
So speaking of stay tuned, what are we doing next week?
I have no idea.
Is this our Wolfie episode next week?
Are we doing the wolf episode?
You mean our wolf episode where we were struggling to find a single
second-
werewolf movie that everybody
Yeah.
could
Hey,
access?
I actually found Company of Wolves streaming last night.
Wait, where did you find it?
With Roku, you can add channels or take away channels. There's a channel called Canopy that I added, and it's tied in with the public libraries. And Company of Wolves is on this channel, Canopy.
Because I was like, Company of Wolves would be awesome because it's a Neil Jordan movie and it's so weird. Yeah, I was like, why isn't this available anywhere? And then I was like mad about Brotherhood of the Wolf too. So we were going to do Wolf of Snow Hollow and The Howling, right?
Yes, as of right now, and things may change. You know, our subject matter is subject to change. But as of now, next week, we are covering The Wolf of Snow Hollow and The Howling.
And part of the reason why we're doing this is that we talked about another series into February, Monsters We Can't Help But Love. So we just spoke about zombies / infected, and now we're going to go with the werewolf. The werewolf.
And I'm sure it won't be the last time we speak of werewolves. There's many out there. And, you know, I was wondering if maybe we should get into, we've never really talked about that movie, Save Yourselves.
That was the sci-fi movie? I think I
Yeah,
sent you
yeah.
guys the preview for it, right?
Yes, you sent us the preview and we kind of
Yeah.
dropped it. And that's an alien invasion kind of a
Yeah.
movie.
It's about the couple that go to the cabin.
Yes. Mhm.
And they're going to cut themselves off from all their phones for the weekend. And while they're
Yeah.
there, something crazy happens.
Yeah.
Save yourself.
See, don't mind us. We're just kind of working through our coming schedule.
That would be
But
a perfect excuse to pair with Attack the Block.
so that's another
Mhm.
possible future episode.
Hey, listen, we're always open to listener suggestions as well, as long as we're all in agreement.
And we can all see it. We can actually all see
Right.
the
It's true.
film.
This is
yeah.
this is the new world we live in, which is it's not like we're running to the theater.
Or to the video store
It's true.
where they
Hey,
have
listen.
everything.
Everybody, listen, all those people on Reddit that would bring back GameStop. Let's bring back Blockbuster.
I know. I was talking to somebody recently about how much it sucks not to be able to go to a video store and actually see everything that's available. It's
Absolutely.
like these algorithms that like recommend things to you.
Yeah.
You know, you just get recommended a few things. It's really hard to find stuff or just to sort of have the fun of discovery.
Yeah.
You know, I really feel like we lost something. I mean, with no music stores too, you know, music stores used to be able to go in and like
Sure.
flip through the CD cases and
Yeah.
look at stuff.
Yeah.
And my husband and I used to literally rent 2 or 3 movies every weekend. We would go into a
Yeah.
video store and,
Yep.
you know, just pick out something we'd never seen. And, you know,
Yep.
you see some great movies that you
You see
never
some
would've
stinkers.
discovered. You see some bad movies, but,
That's
you know,
right.
it's just the fun of it. You know, you just don't get that with streaming.
I know to
Yeah.
have something tangible in your hand, to turn it around, look at the artwork,
Yeah.
and make your decision based on that,
Yeah, it
rather
was
than
always based on the back
some
of that
computer
box.
program telling you what you
Yeah.
thinks you would like.
Plus, I don't know if this is true for you guys, but I used to feel like more committed to completing the movie I rented, you know, like giving it a chance all the way
Right,
through to the
yeah.
end.
Yep.
Whereas sometimes if you watch something streaming and you're not
streaming.
into
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
You just
It's
you can
just-
dismiss it. Yeah.
yeah,
can,
you just
yeah.
you just shut it off.
Yeah, no, I
Mhm.
just drove to the store and I paid $2.99 for this. I am watching it. Right?
They held this for me behind the counter.
That's right. I have to watch it. I reserved it.
Yeah.
That's like giving out the library. Sometimes I don't get my movies until after the fact. I still have to like go and physically bring it home because I'm like they reserved it. They brought it all the way here. I have to at least take it from them. Sit on my table for 3 days and then I return it.
Yeah, bunch of Gen Xers missing physical video stores.
Yeah.
The lament of our generation.
Hey, I'm still stubbornly holding on to my CDs, and I still buy music physically rather than streaming. So
Yeah.
until it's not there anymore, I'm going with the physical product.
There you go. I think we just lost. Speaking of GameStop, we lost the one in the mall. So I think they're going away as well. People just
Well, because
streaming.
there's a lot of you just buy. My son has a Nintendo Switch. He just
Yeah,
buys his
you download
games.
it.
Yeah,
in
you
the-
just
in
get
the
them on.
eShop.
Yeah,
I know.
and they download it right onto the
Yep.
Switch.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
And that's nice for them because they don't have to wait for their parents to take them to
that is true.
the store.
Yep. Oh, we digress.
So, all right. So again,
Okay.
next week, as of now, we are covering Wolf of Snow Hollow and The Howling.
Sounds like a plan.
Yes.
Thanks for listening, kids.
Bye.
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 Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you. Watch the trailer. Watch the trailer.
All aboard.